Okay, Lindsay, I don't think this is a massive surprise. We don't really have performance reviews in our agency. Because of the pandemic, there's been a feeling of we're all lucky to have jobs, but we've literally been working like dogs, and I think we all deserve a pay rise. Is this realistic? Would I be better off leaving and getting it that way instead? This isn't in there, but Great Resignation. Is that what's going on here?
Yes. I know it's a buzzword at the moment, and but I think it's always been this way though as well. Like January for me was always the consideration of, oh, what's new for this year, and quite often that rises to the top is career path, etc. But you know, we've all had many realizations over the last 2 years of what we want to do, and I think the Great Resignation, it'll be more of the great research if I can actually do it more than anything else. But it will be interesting to see what happens with it. But I think this is definitely driven by the feeling that you're probably being taken for granted, and those workplaces that haven't put in place yet, based on anecdotes from the last 2 years, which it always takes something bad for someone to rethink something, right? And so we're seeing that happen. If they haven't put anything in place or offered up some kind of employee care system or performance reviews, etc., then they're obviously barking up the wrong tree. Performance reviews for me that should happen now are not, I don't think should be only based on output and all the usual things of what you bring to a job. I think it's the ability to have still delivered to a certain level of understanding through what we've been through in the last year or two. That for me is probably a critical part of a person doing the performance review. A performance review, I have found, I've worked in multinationals and in boutique agencies or small agencies, is that the multinationals are probably worse at performance reviews than the smaller ones, because they shouldn't be, because there are processes in place, but their eyes are so much on the coin that they will balk and stall and have all the excuses under the sun. Never let that get in the road of going, look, I really do think I need one, whether it's a conversation, how am I going? You know, is there anything that we can look at through the last year? And then that is a great segue then that you can use into, well, maybe I'm worth more. If I've done well and I've done all these things, the clients are happy, we've got great relationships, you know, I'm working well with the team, I don't think I'm a junior anymore. I think I've learned how to go up a little bit. If they stall at that, then yeah, quite often is the way to just start asking around. And I've seen it 1,000 times before. I've done it myself. It's great leverage. If you still like the place you work at and go, you know what, maybe the only way to get them to see the reality is to have an offer. It's like shopping for a car. It really is. You got to commoditize the position almost for yourself and your own benefit. So it's reading the room as well. I know that a lot of companies have lost profit, etc., over the last couple of years. So if you've heard that in the grapevine of your company, it's probably not being delicate about it, but just saying, look, it's probably the time has come that the guys need a bit of a review. If you can't do what you normally do, what can we do? You know, is it gifted days off? Is it an extra bit into superannuation? Is it, you know, there's so many different ways that companies can start to remunerate these days. So don't be afraid of the performance review. It's always a sticky subject to broach with anyone, no matter how long you've been around. But if there's a time, any time to ask for a review, it's now, after what we've been through in the last 2 years. Most definitely.
It's awesome to get such an honest answer from leadership, because you could have easily played the company line there and, you know, which would be, don't go looking around. So I love that, you know, that's what we get from these sessions, which is perfect.
I've been witness to that too many times.
Another thing as well is at the moment, you know, I'm hearing that the holding companies, especially, their share prices are up anywhere between 8 to 10% to 50%. And so, you know, this is the opportunity to go, well, you know, we've all clearly put in work that's increased the value of the company. And I think that can start to come back to people, rather than them go in the same breath that, yes, you know, we know people are hurting, but, you know, I guess what, the company's done pretty well out of it. So yes, great advice. Tara, anything you'd like to add there?
Yes. When I hear the words that there's been a feeling of we're lucky to have jobs, it suggests that this is a pressure that you've also been placing on yourself. That if you're feeling like you're lucky you've got a job, then, you know, we're kind of a bit of mindset here. We're coming from a space of lack, so that it's almost like, well, this is the only option that I've got. And for a lot of people during the pandemic, it has felt that way, 100%. So being able to explore, all right, is this my stuff that I'm bringing into this conversation, or is it actually what's happening? You know, if an organization doesn't have regular reviews, well, that's just the way that the organization does things. It doesn't mean, in my opinion anyway, that doesn't mean that organizations don't engage in pay rises, because I'm pretty sure that's illegal. So, you know, like the minimum wage does increase every year. So that's just part of it. But yeah, the question that came up for me was, are you bringing this, or is it actually the culture of the agency? And then the second thing is, you know, there's three things. So the second thing is it links in with the Business Made Simple stuff. So when I was talking a couple of questions ago about Business Made Simple having these specific meetings, that one of those meetings is the stand-up meetings. Well, every quarter you use those stand-up meetings to look at the overall performance review of the person. And that then makes everything just super structured. Because one of the things that I have really noticed in a lot of larger organizations is that they have policies and procedures and all this kind of stuff that never actually happens because it doesn't make sense on the ground. Whereas if we can implement something that's a little bit more helpful, and, you know, in the video that you watch on the online platform, it actually talks about someone who is entering into a new organization that's wanting to bring this in, and then they're given advice on how to actually do that. So you could look at, you know, this could be one of the things that you bring to your organization next year. Let's actually have some performance reviews. But the third thing, which I think is the most important thing, and I learned this last year, was the notion of if you come prepared to a performance review, then not only are you going to stand out of the crowd, because for the majority of people, they come to a performance review expecting to be reviewed. Whereas you can actually come to a review with your evidence of like, hey, so I've done this and this and this, and that gave this people this much money and these people this much money, and then something else happened over here. I'm sorry about examples. I don't know your industry well enough to use real examples, but, you know, like you can kind of come and say, hey, this is how much I've actually brought your agency this year.
Yeah,
so,
great.
What? You know, and just being really clear and say, you know, these are the goals that I had at the beginning of the year. This is where I'm at with them now. This is what I want for next year. This is how I'm going to implement it. You know, you're coming to your manager, and your manager's probably going to, oh, all right, yeah, I want to keep you because look at all of that.
Yeah. It's actually also good for those conversations Lindsay was talking about earlier. Like those, if you are going to go looking elsewhere, those are your dry runs for the conversation that you're going to have back at work. Like if you've gone, hey, look how great I am, and then you come back and go, look how great I am, you've already got that down pat. So it's a great advice.